Today we have Tracy St, who is the global head of talent at Zapier, where she's reinventing how a fully remote company hires and evaluates AI fluency.
I love it when candidates use AI to prep for an interview. We get 500 applications and 499 of them look perfect on paper. And so what do you do with that as a recruiter? We have to dig under the surface to get deeper and really get to know how qualified people are for positions. I think sometimes the AI does people a disservice and they don't realize it because they think everything sounds better, but it doesn't necessarily sound genuine.
I have a rule at Twill, don't ask me something unless you've asked AI and you weren't able to figure it out. There's no reason why I should be the first person that you're asking.
We have a saying at Zapier that our CTO, Brian Helmig, says. It's you can automate or you can delegate the task, but not the responsibility. You can start experimenting in your personal life because I think the only thing that makes you better at using AI is using AI.
So what is a way that a candidate can stand out in this flood of applications?
I think the way to stand out is to
Welcome to Call HR Podcast with the host, Michelle Volberg.
Welcome to Call HR, where we talk to the people who decide if you get hired and find out what really happens behind the scenes. Today we have Tracy St, who is the global head of talent at Zapier, where she's reinventing how a fully remote company hires and evaluates AI fluency. Welcome, Tracy.
Thanks, Michelle, for having me. I'm so pumped.
Great to have you here. I want to ask you a question that I feel like everyone wants to ask, and tell us, do you guys use AI in your interview process internally at Zapier?
Yeah, absolutely. We use it at Zapier. In fact, we just announced that we're doing a pilot to use agentic recruiters. So we are using AI front and center. If you apply for a role at Zapier now, you might be invited to an AI recruiter screen as your first call. So no hiding the ball here.
What can candidates expect if they are online, they're applying to a engineering or a marketing job? Are they going to get a surprise call from an AI agent? Is it going to be scheduled? What should candidates expect from you?
Yeah. No. It's so much more transparent than that. We put out a whole blog about it that we send to candidates. So basically, we want to be able to let candidates shine and be able to understand their story a little bit more than the application process and a little bit more than their resume. Because Michelle, candidates are so AI enabled right now. When we get a resume and application, we get 500 applications and 499 of them look perfect on paper. And so what do you do with that as a recruiter? We have to dig under the surface to get deeper and really get to know how qualified people are for a position. So if you apply to Zapier, and if it's one of the roles that we're piloting right now, you would get an invitation that literally explains hey, we have a high volume of applications. We really do want to understand more about your interest in the role, et cetera. So we're inviting you to a recruiter screen with AI. Now, at that point, they can opt out because anything with AI, you can opt out. But we try to help candidates see this would be in your benefit. First of all, if you do it, you can do it immediately, or you could schedule it at your own time or schedule it at 2 a.m. or whatever works for you. So it's more flexible for the candidate. We use the same questions that we would ask in a normal recruiter screen. So it's very transparent. People can opt in or out. They can do it immediately. And then we say, we will then have, more insights about you to make a decision to move forward. And if you opt out, not a problem, doesn't affect your candidacy, but we're just going to treat you like we typically would, which means you may or may not get to talk to a human recruiter anyway. So this is kind of hey, just do it. It will help you.
So if 500 people apply online, do all 500 folks get the AI interview, or is there a screening process to select who gets the AI?
There's still a screening process to select. So we don't invite every single person. Some people are clearly not qualified for the role. Some people don't even fill out the application sometimes. So that's an automatic rejection. But we're hoping to get more and more people who will get it. So again, right now we're in pilot phase. Certainly not everybody applying to Zapier is going to be invited to a recruiter screen, but we're doing it in certain select places where we have very high volume and not nearly enough recruiter bandwidth to talk to everybody we want to talk to.
You guys, you run talent at a fully remote, automation obsessed company. So I'm curious if what's the one thing you refuse to automate, regardless of how good the tools get?
That's easy. We will never automate any decision making, any sort of thing that requires human judgment, like 100%. We have a saying at Zapier that our CTO, Brian Helmig, says. It's like you can automate or you can delegate the task, but not the responsibility. And
Love
so
that.
every decision we make as it relates to people, not just hiring, but any people talent work, a human has to be accountable for that decision and be able to back that up if asked. So bar none, very easy. Humans make decisions. AI helps us support with insights, lofting up data, trends, analysis, that sort of stuff. But
Cool. And then flipping it over to candidates, what's an effective way that you've seen candidates use AI in a job search that you respect and that you like?
yeah, I love it when candidates use AI to prep for an interview. We absolutely draw a line on people using like live assistants in an interview for sure, because we want you to act the way that you would act if you got the job. So if you use AI to help you prep for things or to refine your thinking or to help you brainstorm or get your, like for me, I have messy, cluttered thoughts. How do I get them in a way that I can articulate them and practice them? That's a great use of AI. I actually think it levels the playing field for a lot of people who maybe aren't great at interviews or feel really nervous, right? But we want you to use it in the way that you would use it at a real job. So all of the ways that help you refine your thinking, great. All of the ways that let you like cheat by giving you the answer, not great. And actually on our career page, we just released a guide that says, here's how you can use it. Here's how we don't want you to use it. And here's some example prompts to help you use it really well. And so again, trying to be super transparent, but also help people out and saying, if you're not sure, here's like some concrete advice on how you can use it really well.
Anthropic has something similar where they are like, here's how we love for you to use AI, because obviously like we are AI, but here's how we don't want you to use it. Okay, so I want to take a step back and go into dig into how you got into recruiting. So the way that I met you was through your, so what's Brandon's new title?
So Brandon is our Chief People and AI Transformation Officer.
Okay.
It's very fancy.
Yes. So I met Brandon Samut, who was your chief people officer. And now he has a new role with people and AI. And I was pitching him Twill and he was like, I want you to talk to Tracy, who runs talent for us. Like she's the decision maker. And I was like, okay, great. And by the way, like I sent him a cold DM, like I didn't know him. I just sent him a message on LinkedIn. And so when I met with him on Zoom, first I met with him and then he introduced us when he wanted to, to make sure that like I was a person and not some random robot with like a scammy company. And he was like telling me about why he hired you and how transformational you've been for Zapier. And so he was like, she came from Teach for America, where she was recruiting folks from like Ivy League backgrounds, prestigious backgrounds to come work for essentially a nonprofit. And she was super successful. So he was like, if she can do that, like she can do anything. And so I'm curious, like, tell us about your early days at Teach for America. And then a little bit how you got into recruiting.
Yeah. So I actually started at Teach for America. Before I was a recruiter, I was a teacher. So right out of university, I went to UNC Chapel Hill. I joined Teach for America and taught kindergarten in East New York, Brooklyn, which was still to this day, by far, the absolute hardest job I've ever had in my life. Like anytime I feel stressed at work now, I'm like, doesn't hold a candle to being responsible for almost 35-year-olds and their educational foundation.
30 children that were 5 years old, just to clarify.
Yes. Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Does not hold a candle to anything that I do now does not hold a candle to how much pressure and stress I put on myself doing that role. So I taught for 2 years in Brooklyn, fell absolutely in love with my students, the family and communities, and was really drawn to Teach for America's mission was to ensure that the brightest minds across the country from every background had the opportunity to understand how the system of poverty is created and to support students on their educational journey. Teach for America's mission is to ensure that everyone has the opportunity for a great education. And how we do that is to bring college students like myself or early career professionals to actually be in the classroom, being of service to students and communities, but also along the way, letting that be really like the cornerstone and the foundation for everything else you're going to do for the rest of your life, because you truly get a different point of view of the education system, of poverty, of cycles of poverty, and how that plays out as you see every single social issue come to fruition in the four walls of your classroom. So I was obsessed with this mission, and I was just like, how do I find more amazing teachers for my kids? Because after they go to kindergarten, they go to first grade and then second grade and then third grade. And I cannot control their educational outcome after they leave my classroom. And that really stuck with me. So that's how I got into recruiting, Michelle. I actually joined Teach for America as a recruiter. I recruited out in Southern California, and then was there for over 13 years on the recruiting team, just like supporting more and more bigger recruiting teams, eventually running the team, helping recruit the most diverse teacher pipeline in the country, which is something I, again, was one of the hardest things I did in my career, but some of the most incredible, valuable work.
Yeah. So starting out in the classroom, what did teaching teach you personally about people, leadership, and systems and like process building, which is a lot of what you probably do now?
Yeah, I think two things, a meta thing, and then I think a very personal thing that relates to recruiting. One, I would say that going into Teach for America as a 22-year-old right out of college, I had seen, like all the movies in Hollywood of like, okay, one teacher, if I could just reach one student or something like that, right? And it is such a broader and more systemic issue. And I think I didn't realize how ingrained systems were. Like one person's heroic efforts are not going to change an entire student's outcomes or a community's outcomes. You actually need leadership at every single level. And I think that's applicable to any organization. It's not just you have one great manager and your career takes off. You can have a pivot point for sure. But I really think about what are the systems we need to ensure that talented people can thrive. And that would be the other thing that I think kept me and has kept me in talent work this whole time is as a kindergarten teacher, I saw firsthand that teaching and leading talent is about identifying incredible talent, nurturing it, helping people thrive, ensuring that they have the conditions to be successful. They feel empowered to take charge of their own learning, their own career, whatever it is. And so those lessons really early on, teaching 5-year-olds very much carry over to how I believe and approach talent now, the potential I see in people, and how I believe that anybody from any background can be successful if we create the conditions around them for them to thrive.
That is so fascinating to me. I'm curious, when you were recruiting for that at Teach for America, you're recruiting from super prestigious schools. Were there people that like basically looked perfect on paper, like had all the check marks they were looking for, but you somehow knew that they wouldn't actually work in the classroom, so you rejected them? Like, I'm sure that happened, but tell us, how did you know? Because that's like the essence of recruiting, is like a lot of the gut instinct about people. So how did you know?
Yeah. Without going too in the weeds, Teach for America has, first of all, as a nonprofit, but also as any organization, Teach for America is the most data-driven organization I've ever worked at. And for 35 plus years, they have had the data to show what are the qualities. This is like the original quality of hire, Michelle. It's like, what are the qualities of somebody who is 22 that would play out successfully in a classroom? So those were things like leadership, communication, stakeholder relationships, building trust, like a lot of soft skills, and then also some hard skills. But we taught people how to be a teacher. They went to grad school. They took classes. They did certification. But we were really looking for some of those soft skills. And so somebody who looked perfect on paper, who had great grades and who, had all these leadership positions, they would be really attractive to us because in order to do that, you have to have, some innate soft skills. But we were really also looking for things like grit, resilience, being able to stick with something even when it's hard, perseverance. How do you get through challenges? How do you bring other people in to support to get to a goal that you have without just trying to heroically do it yourself? So again, we tried to look for people who thought in a systems way and who understood that there's a lot more power in bringing folks together in community than just trying to say, I'm going to do it all myself. So I would say like that was the one that we saw a lot. Somebody who was like, I'm just going to do it all myself and I've done everything myself. And, that's how I've been successful. Well, you get in the classroom and everybody is humbled on day one. Like no matter how great you were, if you were, valedictorian of your class, you are humbled on day one because an 8-year-old or 5-year-old or a high school student does not care. So you really had to ensure that people understood what they were taking on.
Yeah, I'd say that was my experience with motherhood. Like my children humble me like every single day. I'm just curious because you worked with 8-year-olds. Now you work with a lot of adults in tech. Like, what is there, is there one group that's easier to deal with? Do adults throw tantrums like 8-year-olds? Like, how do you deal with this stuff?
I think adults throw tantrums. I think sometimes, at home, when I don't get my way, I throw a tantrum. I think it looks very different. And so I would say, I used to say this to college students, when I was recruiting them at Teach for America, because they were like, I can only teach high school. I don't know how to work with 5-year-olds, or I could only teach like, okay. I'm like, you know what? The skills that you need to teach 5-year-olds are the same skills you need to teach high school students and college students. And guess what? Adults as well. It is literally the same skills to be able to do that, to be able to build trust, work with people, communicate, set expectations. Like, all of those lessons, honestly, that I learned teaching 5-year-olds are the lessons that I carry with me as a manager. Like so many things that you read in HBS about how to be a great manager. Guess what? Teachers do that every single day.
Every single day.
So I would maybe say that. I don't know who throws the worst tantrums. They look different. But I know that if you can teach 5-year-olds, you can actually be often a really good manager of people because some of those skills translate.
Yeah, and some people just don't grow up, by the way, regardless of how good they are technically.
Purposefully or not purposefully, sometimes they just
I would say, yeah, it would be a mix. Some people subconsciously don't grow up. Okay, so then you went into tech. So tell us why Zapier, like what interested you about the company? What drew you to a fully remote automation-driven company like Zapier?
Yeah. Well, so honestly, Brandon is the one who recruited me to Zapier. And I worked with him at Teach for America. I knew him to be an incredible human, a really progressive thinker, very focused on being human-centered, focused on equity. Like, I just really admire Brandon. And so when he recruited me over, I really thought about it. I had not at all thought about going into tech or profit. I was like, no, I'm a nonprofit person my whole life. But what drew me to Zapier was actually the mission that really resonated with me. Like, so at Teach for America, our mission was to ensure that every child has access to an excellent education. And at Zapier, the mission is to make automation work for everyone. And so there was something that I really loved about a company that was trying to democratize through no-code, low-code automation, a technology that could be really life-changing for people and for companies. And my first moment, I think this was like my first week at Zapier, it really crystallized for me. I took my daughter to her dance class. And I had the Zapier sticker on my laptop, and the owner of the dance studio came over. She's like, "Do you work at Zapier?" And I was like, "Yeah." She's like, "We use Zapier. Oh my gosh, if we didn't use Zapier, my husband and I could not run this business. We would have to hire so many more people, but we don't have to because we have Zapier." And I was like, "Oh, I love that. Like, that is amazing." And so for nonprofits, small, medium businesses, enterprises, I just really love that Zapier is democratizing that and that it can be for everybody. And especially in this world of AI now, this technology can feel overwhelming to people. And I think Zapier breaks it down in a way that, anybody can use it, anybody can build. And to me, that felt very analogous in a lot of ways to Teach for America. But yeah, I also just generally very much admire our CEO, our founders, working with Brandon, and how people-centered and human-centered Zapier is as we're trying to do something really big in the technology field.
So at Twill, we work with so many different founders, startups, companies. Most of them are hybrid or in office now. And I want to say like Zapier's one of the customers that really sticks true to being remote. And by the way, Twill is remote too. And I've spoken to Brandon about this a lot. Like, what is the secret to your culture? Because tell us how big the company is. Tell us where everyone lives. And how do you guys maintain, in my opinion, one of the best remote cultures I've ever seen?
Yeah, so we are just about 800 people.
Okay.
We are, again, as you said, fully remote in 40 plus countries.
Wow.
So we are truly remote. And Zapier's been remote from the very beginning. So when we were founded in 2011, 2012, we started as a remote company. So we weren't like a COVID go remote and then we just stuck there. We were always remote. And I think actually then during COVID, when everybody else had to go remote, we had already had it figured out. So I think Zapier I wasn't here at the time, but I think they were publishing playbooks to be like, here's how you can do it. So I would say a couple of things. Like when you're fully remote, it's a lot easier. Just think about designing everything to be remote. I'm sure you know this, Michelle. So it's like your hiring is remote, your onboarding is remote. How you think about culture is with this design of everybody being remote and everyone being online. So we use Slack extensively. Our team just actually published a new Slack guidelines to like remind everybody how to use Slack, because apparently we use Slack more than Slack, the company, uses Slack. Like we are like
fact? Like did Slack?
Yeah, that was a fact. Yeah. Oh, wow. I heard that a few years ago. And it's just like we have, so many automations that are attached to Slack as well. We have a lot of work that gets done async, a lot of work gets done transparently. So you have to think through what's the infrastructure to support that. I actually think being hybrid is one of the hardest models to be in, because then you're actually designing for two different groups versus if you were in person, you design for that. If you're remote, you design for that. But I think for us, I mean, our values really hold true. Like we default to transparency. So again, everything is on Slack. We try to be in public channels as much as possible. It's very easy to find things too. We use a lot of AI to help us do that. Here's one of the things, Michelle, that I have realized about being remote, where we have an advantage in this AI world, is that when you have everything remote, and we use like note takers and we have Slack and we have documents because we do a lot of our work async, it is very easy for AI to find that, to summarize it, to scrub you in when you're coming back from PTO. If you work in an office, AI isn't capturing like your whiteboarding session or that water cooler conversation or the thing that you said when you were at lunch or going to grab coffee with a colleague that you wanted to remember later, and that idea. But when it's all happening online in meetings or in text, it's actually a lot easier and more accessible for people to get caught up, to like understand what's happening in the company. And I think actually that's going to emerge as a really big advantage now in this AI world that I hadn't really thought about till maybe a few months ago.
I think that's such an interesting point, because I really hadn't thought about it that way either. But if you're fully remote, essentially everything is documented in some way. Otherwise it wouldn't be. So all of the, all the technology can just really help you be much more efficient. There was a Zap that we built. By the way, do people at Zapier call the company Zap? Like, is it just me that call it? I use the abbreviation Zap all the time. Is that okay?
That's another way to remember Zapier, because the automation workflows are called Zaps.
Yes. Okay, cool. Yeah. Wanted to make sure. So we, Wade or Brandon posted about, or maybe somebody posted in leadership from Zap, an automation that they built that basically took all of the coaching notes and like the meeting transcription notes and sent a summary to the team members, and then a summary individually to each person on recommendations on how to perform better in meetings. And it would give you positive feedback and negative feedback. And so we've been doing that, and I think it's like fascinating, because there's like some things that I never would have just even picked up on. But to have that there is very cool.
Yeah.
Okay. So
I feel like AI can really reflect back on you, your trends and tendencies that you don't necessarily notice. Like I have an email agent that I built on Zapier. I'm not the best builder. Even I could build it. So I love building agents. So this email agent helps me with my inbox, and I asked it to like read all of my previous emails I sent to like understand my tone. And it responded back to me to say like, this is what Tracy's tone is. And I was like, oh, wow, I do use a lot of exclamation points, don't I?
But you also just seem so happy. So like, it doesn't feel like a forced thing. That feels like part of you, like your energy.
Yeah, totally. So it completely read me very well. Even if I thought I was like very professional, it's like, nope, you're very casual and you use a lot of exclamation points.
I love it.
I'm like, okay,
I'm sure
that's fair.
I'm sure your team loves that. So I want to move into, there are so many people that want to work at Zapier. It's such a highly sought after company. It's a customer of Twill. We have hundreds of people that want to work there and get submitted for referrals. And you guys are like flooded with applications. So I'm just curious, like, what's the fastest you've ever rejected someone? Like, what did they do? Tell the candidates what not to do.
No, this is a very easy question. People who don't actually fill out the application is like our biggest pet peeve. And those people are just automatically rejected, because if you can't even take the time to answer the questions we have like thoughtfully put on the application, and you have AI now. So there's like literally no excuse even to like do it. Then to us, that just shows like if they're not willing to put in a few minutes of effort here, then we're not going to put in the effort to interview you. Because I think that everything that happens in an interview process plays out in true life. It's one of my like core talent hiring philosophies. Like,
Yes.
I really think that everything plays out. And so that is like an automatic rejection if we don't feel like people are putting in the effort.
I'd say when a candidate or a person shows you who they are,
Yes.
believe them. That is like the number one thing I've learned, especially during the interview process. If they're late to a meeting, if they don't fill out the application, it's just a preview of what it's like working with them. Is it better or worse or the same if they do use AI to fill out the entire application and you can tell?
That's a really good question. I mean, one, I think my team is getting really good at telling, and that's part of the impetus of adding this agentic recruiter screen. We also started to get a lot of fraudulent candidates and even deep fakes that we would end up seeing online when we were trying to interview them. So I would say, again, like our guide online shows people how you can use it. And we believe, like, for example, something like a resume or the application, if you have jumbled thoughts and you need help articulating them more clearly to really put your best foot forward, we're totally fine with that. I will say, though, that as more and more people are using AI to completely do their resume and completely do their application, I think that we're just getting a lot less signal, and those things are becoming a lot more noise. And so what I'm really obsessed with is ensuring that we're designing our hiring process so that we assume that people are using AI as much as they can. So how do we design a hiring process to still get signal when that is the case? And honestly, like my prediction, Michelle, this might be a spicy take, is I think like applications, resumes, like all of those are going to go away. I think they're going to go the way of the cover letter, just like goodbye, not useful, because they're just starting to be noise. Like I very much care where you worked and how long you worked there, but a lot of the bullets under a resume, I feel like are often written by AI, and that doesn't tell us a lot. And so we have to really figure out ways to like get deeper and understand the candidates.
So what is a way that a candidate can stand out in this like flood of applications?
Yeah, I think being like very clear of why you want the job and naming that in the application. Absolutely. I think also when you actually do get either, you're invited to a agentic recruiter screen, take it. If you're invited to a in-person interview online interview, I think the way to stand out is to like done your research on the company, which you can use AI to help you do, but also really connect your experience to expressing why you want to be here in a way that is very genuine to you. I think even on live interviews, we can tell if somebody's sort of like reading a prompt that they put into AI to say why they love the job. It doesn't sound as genuine. We want to hear like you, the person that we are going to work with someday. Why do you want to be here? And what do you know? So I would just say, like, I think sometimes the AI does people a disservice and they don't realize it because they think everything sounds better, but it doesn't necessarily sound genuine.
Yeah, this sounds like you.
Yeah. And I will also say, I think external signal is becoming really important. So we care deeply about doing reference checks. We even do live reference checks for every candidate. So we want to talk to a manager that you connect us to. I also think referrals are really important too, and networks, because in this world of AI, we need to be careful not to exclude anybody, because if you have a network-based approach, then you could become really insular. But if you have a real focus on diversifying your candidate pool, then being able to be in spaces where you get recommendations, you meet people at conferences, like things where you can actually put a face to a name or have some sort of real human connection in some way, even like a DM that feels very genuine. I think those things are going to help people stand out, because you'll present yourself as human in a whole landscape of, AI.
That was my next question. Do you like it when candidates send you DMs on LinkedIn or cold emails? Like, tell us, do you like that? Do you not like it? Are there things that have worked in the past, or is it just like a total cringe moment for you?
Yeah, well, I will say I'm the worst at LinkedIn. So most of the time, if people are sending me DMs, I will not see them because I do get so many. So I wouldn't even say it's an effective tactic to send me a DM, honestly. But I think in times where there's like a very clear connection, and people take the time to say like, Tracy, like, I was a Teach for America alum, or, like whatever it is. I saw you on this podcast. I heard you at this conference. Like we met. Like if there's something that feels really personal and human, it's more likely to catch my eye when I eventually do look at my LinkedIn DMs. And of course, if there's a connection or I've met somebody or something like that, then I'm happy to help where I can. But all of our recruiters get inundated. And I always tell people like the best thing to do is to like apply, and honestly, best of luck. But I can't field, hundreds of DMs a day.
Yeah, I'm sure you get thousands, but I would say that an effective way to connect with anyone in leadership is to find like a true, authentic connection that resonates. And I will say that Zapier is, I think, very good about reviewing every single application that comes in. Like you guys, a human reviews every single one. That's really
absolutely. Great. That is one of our commitments to candidates.
Yeah.
And we even try to get back to candidates within 7 days. I will say we had to put a disclaimer because we are getting thousands and thousands of applicants for every role. We had to extend that to 14 days. But we will get back to you. We do not ghost people. I'm sure there's some things where a couple folks have fallen through the cracks by accident, but as a philosophy, we will always get back to people. We will always review your application.
Yeah, that's amazing. And so Wade, the founder of Zapier, Brandon, and you, and much of the team, whether in leadership or non-leadership, I really see building in public and talking about AI and experimenting with different things. So I'm curious, is there something that your team automated in hiring that you thought would be this like amazing thing? It was like a total disaster.
Yeah. So we're actually redoing a process right now because of that. I wouldn't say it was a total disaster, but we were like, oh, this is what happens if you build AI on top of a broken system. You come out with a more broken system that just is scaled, right? So I think that was a good lesson. We actually built an internal referral workflow for Zapians to refer people that they know from their network. And we were trying to connect it with the ATS, and then we were trying to like get it all automated and have like a form that goes out to people. And honestly, it just became too complicated for the Zapians trying to refer people, and it became too complicated for recruiters trying to sort through all of that. And we were like, okay, that was a great experiment. Totally fine. Experiments don't always work. Let's stop. Let's go back to the basics of what we're actually trying to build and what is like the right, proper workflow that will get us to that in the simplest way, and then build AI on top of that. And so we're in the process of doing that right now. Emily Maybe, who is our senior AI automation engineer for the people team at Zapier, who is phenomenal and does a lot of like teaching in public too about AI and automation. She's helping us build it, and it's going really well in testing. So we're going to roll it out very soon. But yeah, that was one that just gave me the lesson of like, if your system's already broken, then putting AI on top of it is only going to make it more broken.
Yeah, it's just going to scale the problems.
Exactly. Yeah, it's just going to be more obviously broken too. So,
but maybe there's a silver lining there that you were able to see that it was a rooted problem that you had to fundamentally fix first before you scaled it. So there's 100%. Some silver lining to that. You can that way. Yeah. So you guys created an AI fluency rubric, which basically means you're grading people on how well they use AI. And I think when this was first rolled out, it was in a Zoom, like a webinar, and I joined it and I listened to it, like when you guys rolled it out to the public. Yeah. And it was so interesting to listen to. I took screenshots, and Brandon was like, don't take screenshots. We're sending it all out. Yeah. You get all the materials. But we use this at Twill now, and it's really important to us as a company and as a team. I'm curious, has anyone bombed it? And sort of, what do you say to people that want to become AI fluent, but really have no experience doing this in their personal or professional life? Like, I think a big question for people is like, where do I start?
Yeah, I'll start with that question, and then I can talk about where people haven't done well. I mean, I think AI is still so new. Like, it does seem like we've been talking about AI for several years, but I still think a lot of the technology is new, and it's changing rapidly. It's getting better rapidly. And so I always tell people, even if you can't use it at work, or you're not allowed to use it at work, like you're in healthcare or in the financial industry, there's some people who can't or aren't able to. You can start experimenting in your personal life, because I think the only thing that makes you better at using AI is using AI. It's like you have to experiment with it, practice with it, try your prompts, poke around a little bit, and then see how it's working. And I would say that when you do that, one, I think it helps people build confidence that like, oh, wow, this actually is working. This is getting me the, thing I want. It also helps people see the holes. Okay, didn't work so well. No, not to use AI for that. Let me try something else. But it also creates what I have been calling like magical moments when you get the AI in whatever platform it is that you're using, when you get it to work for you and it does something for you that you couldn't do before or you couldn't do in that amount of time, it feels really magical. I think that's the way that people experience Zapier when they like built an automated workflow for the first time and they're like, wait, I don't have to do all that manual work anymore. Mm-hmm. Wow, I feel like a wizard. I feel like when you get those magical moments with AI, you build your confidence, you build your trust in it, and you understand how to use it better. I also think that because it's changing so rapidly, things that you can't build today or do in AI with AI right now, you might be able to do in 3 months or 6 months. Things that you can do today, you couldn't do 3 months ago. And so it's changing all the time. So for people who feel intimidated or feel like they're behind, I constantly feel behind in AI and I work for an AI company, just take a small step. Think of one thing that you can automate or that you can use AI for and just try it. There's so many tools out there. Even now, it's like you can't actually not use AI in anything that you're doing. Like even your Gmail, even when you shop on Amazon, it's using AI and you're starting to become accustomed to it. So I think it will be harder and harder to be somebody who doesn't use it. Now, how have people not done well on our AI fluency assessment? Which we do, we check for it at multiple points in the process. I would say people who are very still at this point skeptical about AI, don't want to use it, or, have only used it for like, let me see if ChatGPT can like create a recipe for me or like a poem for my child. Like that's really fun. But to work at Zapier, you need to start really experimenting and using AI for a specific purpose. Like even helping me prep for this interview or helping me, all of my writing become better edited and like teach me how to write. So we're looking for people who are using AI for a specific purpose and ideally in things that relate to work. So people who have failed this or who haven't really met the bar are folks that are kind of leaning away from AI, not really using it in a purposeful way, maybe dabbling here or there, or feel really skeptical. I will say, though, about the skeptical piece is that doesn't mean that people can't be weary or think about the ethics of AI. In fact, that would actually put you higher on our rubric, because if you understand when you can and can't use AI, why you wouldn't or would use it at any given time. It's okay to be skeptical in that sense, but not just like, oh, I don't trust AI, I'm not using it.
Okay, so AI can be really bad. Plus, have you ever caught your employees using AI and not actually doing the work for themselves? And is that a bad thing or not?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think of that as like catching people. In fact, a lot of times if people are not using AI to help them, we're kind of like, why are you not using AI to do that? Like, why, like you're wasting time. So I don't mind seeing, the M dash. I actually love the M dash before it was a ChatGPT thing. I use it all the time anyway. I don't mind it at all. Like we can certainly tell when some people are using it to like create a memo. You can tell they're formatting, but it doesn't bother us because as long as they sign off on the ideas that are there, again, you can delegate the task, but you can't delegate the accountability. So whatever someone puts in front of me, I'm like, this is your work. It doesn't matter if you used AI for 10% of it or 90% of it. This is the work product you're giving me, and I will look at it and evaluate it and assess it and give feedback accordingly. I think there have been times where I've seen people just be like, it's clear maybe they used AI, but then they didn't edit it or like look up something over themselves. And I'm like, what does this mean? And they're like, oh, actually, I don't know. Let me go back and change that. Yeah. But that's not a big deal. It's like, we try to move really quickly at Zapier. I appreciate that people use AI. I just always want to make sure that people are accountable for the work that they submit and produce and put out there in the world. And so I don't think it's a bad thing. I use it a lot for a first draft or to edit a draft that I did. And if it creates some more M dashes and some bolding in weird places, so be it.
Yeah. I mean, as long as you proofread and edit and like you can sign off on the ideas, I think that's what's so important. I have a rule at Twill, like don't ask me something unless you've asked AI and you weren't able to figure it out. Like there's no reason why I should be the first person that you're asking.
Especially as the CEO. Yes, I would definitely agree.
But like we say that for everyone on the team. Like, we all have Claude. So many platforms are free. Anyway, okay. So now I want to go into the our HR, we're calling it HR hotline. So this is rapid fire.
Oh,
So
okay.
like 5 words or less.
Ooh.
Some of them can be super short. If you want to expand on something, you can. Okay. So worst job you've ever had?
A crystal shop where I had to gift wrap during Christmas.
Oh, wow.
That was my first job.
That
when I was
sounds
16.
really painful, actually.
Yeah.
Like you were
And
probably.
I'm not even that good at gift wrapping now. So it's like,
Oh, wow.
I didn't even learn enough.
Wow. Okay. That we need to talk about crystals a separate time. Okay. What's your biggest HR ick?
Oh, okay. My biggest HR ick for candidates is when they don't fill out the application.
Everyone's now going to know after this podcast that if you want to get a job at Zapier, please fill out the entire application.
Absolutely. Good. If that's their one takeaway, I love it.
Yeah. What's one interview question you'd banish forever if you could?
I hate the general, like, tell me about yourself. Like, give a candidate some direction, please.
Love it. If you weren't in HR, what job would you be doing?
I think I would be doing something more with the arts and theater, which is one of my passions, like arts advocacy, arts integration, working for a theater company, something like that. I do that in my free time.
So fun. So you can find Tracy on stage.
Yes. Behind the scenes. Yeah.
Oh, okay. What's the worst interview you've ever conducted or been in?
I can't think of a specific one, but any interview that feels like adversarial, like they're trying to catch you to say the wrong thing on either side. Just like,
oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Red flag in a resume that's an instant pass for you.
Ooh, I would say if it's just like words with like no real meaning.
Yeah. Or like no data, probably.
No data. Yeah. No data. Where it's like, this tells me literally nothing. This is
Yeah.
just the job title. And you've just like said the job title in 3 different ways.
Yes. With a ton of adjectives.
Yeah. Lots of adjectives.
What's one thing candidates think impresses you, but actually doesn't? This is a good one.
When you ask for an area of growth and they tell you an area of strength and they make it sound like an area of growth. That is literally the worst. Like, oh, I'm a perfectionist. I care too much about work. Like, that's the worst thing you can do because I want to hear your self-reflection and your deep self-awareness. It only tells me that you are not that self-aware. That's
I feel like we should actually expand on that. So,
okay.
When hiring managers or recruiters ask candidates, like, tell us some area that you need to grow in, most job applicants are afraid to answer that honestly because it feels like that it puts them in a position of weakness.
Yep.
Tell us from your perspective what you're actually looking for when you ask that question.
I think it puts them in a position of strength because if they can tell us the thing that we need to be aware of, then we know what we're getting. And when it's genuine self-reflection, that really matters from a growth mindset perspective and the type of person that we want to work with. Someone who's going to be able to make a mistake and take ownership of it. Be able to say, I don't know the answer to that, but let me get back to you. Our CEO, who is very invested in hiring, he always says, with all candidates, there's the good, the bad, and the ugly. And you have to keep digging until you see the ugly. We do not want a candidate that seems perfect on paper because then everybody has ugly, right? Everybody has something that they need to grow in. If you seem perfect, then we just don't know what it is yet. And that actually makes me a lot more nervous as a hiring manager to not know what is the thing that we're going to discover when you get here. I would rather you tell me, and then we can talk about, what did you learn from that? What are you doing to work on that? Like, to me, that is the most impressive when a candidate can say, here's a challenge or here's something I really messed up on. Here's how I learned from it. Here's how I'm growing. Here's what it makes me think about. Like, that's the type of person that I want to work with, but it's also the type of person who's going to really grow and thrive here at Zapier.
And to be clear, you guys hire people knowing the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yeah.
And so it's really important for people to know that.
If we are going through offer approvals and we do not know what the growth areas are or what the risks are about a candidate, that offer is not getting approved because then it just seems that we didn't do our due diligence.
Wow. So I think that's so important for job seekers to know that you want to actually share areas of growth because it's it's a requirement to be hired at Zapier and probably most really, really good companies.
Yeah, absolutely.
Most creative excuse you've ever heard from someone turning down an offer?
So this goes back to my Teach for America days when we were recruiting college students. And more than once, Michelle, people would be like, my parents don't think I should do this. My parents don't want me to do this. I totally get it. Parents are really involved in kids' lives right now. But I would say that if someone's parents are telling you not to do something that you really want to do and you're like 22 and you're going out in the world, you're probably not the sort of like empowered person that we need you to be in a classroom anyway. And so it's probably like all for the best. So
Yes.
I don't know if that's creative, but I heard that a lot and I'd be like, but we're like 22, 24, you're an adult. If you don't want to do it, say so, but don't tell me your parents told you couldn't.
Yeah, that's a whole other discussion. But
That's
I
a
will
whole
say
other
that,
discussion.
like, that's a whole other issue, but it definitely weeds out people for
Yes.
you. If you could eliminate one step from the hiring process forever, what would it be?
Oh, I think now I really want to eliminate resumes and applications and replace it with something different.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And what's a green flag in candidates that most people overlook?
I would say self-awareness.
Mm-hmm.
100%. That tells you everything you need to know about a person, but you also can really trust that person and you know what you're getting. And I think people with the most self-awareness also have the most ability to grow.
This is a very controversial topic. Thank you notes after interviews. What's your take? Yes or no? And when should they be sent?
Okay, I have a nuanced answer. I think I care more about it depending on the role. Because if you're applying for a sales role, I expect you to show us like how you hustle, right? So what would you do if you were a sales AE and you were following up with a customer? Like I actually kind of like seeing that reflected in the hiring process as well. So I wouldn't say it's a deal breaker either way, but when I see a candidate for sales like go to market or a recruiter even, and they are like following up with a really personalized or AI enabled / personalized follow up, it's like, okay, this is how they would act if they were, this is like natural and inherent to them. So this is how they would maybe act if they were actually working here. So again, I'm looking for things in the hiring process that will mirror what it is like to work with this person once they had the job. And so for me, those are the ones where it maybe seems a little bit more important, but I don't mind if they don't send it.
You don't mind. So it doesn't disqualify anyone for not sending thank you note.
It doesn't disqualify at all. I do think, though, a really thoughtful one with like follow up, like, hey, I said this, but I actually wanted to add on, or you asked me this and I didn't have a good answer, but I wanted to say that, or you made me think of this. That can really help someone stand out. So not disqualifying if you don't send it can really help you stand out if you do send it and it's like very good. Does that make sense?
Love that. Yes. Yeah. That was my next question. What can people do now to stand out in the job market? And so like really thoughtful follow up.
Yes.
Potentially even reframing it from a thank you note just to a follow up. That's really strategic.
Yeah, like a way to continue the conversation. Like, hey, you asked me this question. I was thinking about it more and I would be really excited about these things. Or you asked me this question and I had this follow up for you. So as a way to keep the conversation going, I think is a really smart move for a candidate to do. It shows that you're engaged, you're excited, you're doing your homework, you're thinking about the job. Like it just really shows engagement that I think hiring managers want to see and that often like become a green flag for us too. Like, wow, this person really wants to work here. Like, let's take that into account.
They're putting the effort in.
Yeah, they're putting the effort in. Exactly.
Cool. Okay, we've got 2 final questions.
Okay.
Thank you so much, by the way. This is really like so good. Okay, so looking ahead, tell us what you're excited about next, in the broader spectrum of future of work and obviously specifically at Zapier.
Yeah. So I'm really excited because one of my charges for 2026 at Zapier is to talk to a lot of different talent acquisition leaders and people within, not just in tech, but outside of that, to really start to get a sense of how we can transform the hiring process. I'm obsessed with this idea that like the hiring process we've had where there's a resume, an application, an interview, reference check, like, right, that has been the process for decades, right? And now in this AI-enabled world, I'm really thinking through not just how do we make that process more efficient or better quality or better for experience for candidates, but how are we actually transforming the whole hiring process in an AI-first world? I do not know the answer to that question, by the way. I'm very excited to work to figure that out. and talking to a bunch of folks within TA, sharing what we're learning at Zapier, what we're trying, what we're building at Zapier is part of that work. And I'm really just excited for us to think through what can talent look like now in this new world of AI. And luckily, I have a sandbox to play at Zapier where we can build things, we can try things, we can experiment. And so I'm eager to just like share as much of that as possible and hope that it spurs good, back and forth conversation and stimulation for me to like learn from others too.
How does that inspire you to, share any like final words or advice to talent leaders, across the world, really navigating all of these changes that are happening, like 100 times a day is what it feels like.
Oh gosh. I think we're all just trying to like survive and keep up on things, honestly. But I think, oh gosh, am I even qualified to give advice for other talent leaders? I would say my advice would be to keep curious and to keep trying. Because again, technology right now today is the worst it's ever going to be. It's only going to get better every single day. And so I want everybody, and myself included, and pushing myself to like keep pushing into like what's possible, because what is possible today wasn't possible 3 months ago, and what will be possible in a year from now, we might not even be able to imagine today. And so just keep that in mind and keep thinking, asking questions, getting curious, and being open to like where the technology is taking us, but staying philosophically grounded in your values and your principles. Like AI doesn't make decisions, clear value, right? So how do you stay grounded in that while still being open to technology? I think is a balance that all TA leaders are going to have to find. All people leaders are going to have to find.
Amazing. Well, thank you for joining us as one of our first guests on the season of Call HR. And this is Tracy from Tracy St, who's the global head of talent at Zapier.
Thanks so much, Michelle. This was super fun. I appreciate the invite.
Thanks.